The surprising truth is that most people tell their cats "I love you" in all the wrong ways. We shower them with toys and treats, yet miss the quiet signals they actually depend on. Real connection with a cat isn't loud or obvious. It's hidden in stillness, in timing, in the tiny rituals they hope you'll notice. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm going to show you the small behaviors that feel insignificant but mean everything in a cat's world. If that speaks to you, feel free to stick around, like the video, and join me as we learn more together. 1. The slow blink. Have you ever noticed how a cat's slow blink feels less like a gesture and more like a small secret being shared with you? There's a softness in the way your cat does it, as if they're letting you into a space they don't offer to just anyone. When you return that blink with your own slow closing of the eyes, you're telling them you feel safe enough to be vulnerable too. It's a quiet exchange, but it carries a surprising amount of emotional weight once you start paying attention to it. And when you time your blink with that gentle hold before opening your eyes again, something in your cat's body language shifts in response. It's the kind of simple moment that grows trust over time, without either of you having to make a sound. 2. The bunt return. And once you notice that quiet trust forming, you start to see how your cat has been reaching out in other ways all along. The truth is that when a cat presses their head or cheek against you, they're not just asking for attention. They're marking you as someone who belongs to them. It's one of the deepest signs of acceptance they have, wrapped in a gesture that looks almost accidental if you're not paying attention. When you respond by leaning in softly, instead of grabbing or petting, you're speaking back in the only language that moment can hold without overwhelming them. Your cat wants that exchange to feel mutual, like a shared breath rather than an interruption. And when you let them set the pace, you reinforce the idea that you're part of their inner circle in a way that words could never express. 3. Timed slow blinks. And when you're part of their inner circle, the smallest gestures start to carry even more meaning. The strange thing is that a slow blink given at the wrong moment feels completely different from one offered at the right time. Your cat pays attention to the emotional weather of the room, and they read your eyes the way we read someone's tone of voice. When the world feels calm, or when they've just settled after something stressful, that gentle eye softening can feel like a reassurance they didn't know they needed. And when you offer it right before they drift into sleep, it lands almost like a final goodnight, a quiet signal that you're here and present without asking anything of them. What surprises many people is how often cats will echo that blink back, as if acknowledging a rhythm you've finally learned how to match. 4. The mother zone. Neck and ears. People often assume cats enjoy broad, sweeping pets, but that belief quietly overlooks what they're actually seeking. There's a tenderness in the way your cat leans into a fingertip near their neck or ears, almost like they're remembering something from the safest part of their early life. When you touch those spots gently, with more patience than pressure, you're echoing the kind of grooming that once meant protection and warmth. Your cat pays close attention to how you handle this moment, offering tiny cues, a tilt of the head, a soft lean, or even a small retreat, so you know whether to continue or ease off. And when you follow those signals instead of insisting on your own rhythm, the interaction becomes something shared rather than something done to them. What begins as a simple scratch turns into a quiet reassurance that you understand the parts of them they don't often reveal. 5. Base of tail grooming. This usually starts with a small moment, like your cat pausing beside you and lifting their hips just a little higher than you expect. There's something almost shy about it, as if they're asking for help with a place they can't quite reach on their own. When your hand gently moves to that spot at the base of their tail, you can feel their whole posture soften, if it's a sensation they enjoy. Some cats respond with a slow arch or a relaxed sway, their body telling you they trust you with a place that feels both sensitive and comforting. But because that area can shift from pleasant to overwhelming quickly, your cat's reaction becomes the guide, not the pressure of your hand. And when you learn to read that line between the light and too much, you're showing them you care about their comfort more than the moment itself, which deepens the bond in a way that feels almost effortless. 6. Cat-controlled contact. Most people think affection is something you give to a cat, but the truth is that cats feel safest when they're the ones who choose the moment. There's a quiet dignity in the way your cat approaches you, almost testing the air to see if your energy matches what they need. When you let them come to you on their own terms, you're telling them you respect their boundaries in a world that often ignores them. And when you pause before reaching out, letting them brush against your hand or settle beside you first, the whole interaction shifts into something gentler and more reassuring. Your cat can feel the difference between being handled and being welcomed, and they show it in the softness of their body, the looseness of their tail, the way they linger instead of leaving. When their retreat is met with space instead of pursuit, they learn over time that your presence is a place where they never have to defend themselves, and that safety becomes one of the deepest forms of affection they can receive. 7. Non-threatening body language. It's strange how a simple step forward from a human can feel enormous to a cat. They read the shape of your body long before they consider the warmth of your intentions. And a direct approach can look more like a challenge than a greeting. When you lower yourself a little, angle your body, or soften your movements, you're showing them that you're not here to corner or control them. Your cat watches these shifts closely, the slower breaths, the quieter footsteps, the way you offer your hand like an invitation instead of a demand. And in that calmer posture, they find room to explore you at their own pace, sniffing, pausing, deciding how close they want to be without any pressure. Over time, these small adjustments become a language of their own, telling your cat that you're willing to meet them in a space that feels safe, respectful, and entirely theirs to enter. 8. The gift of space. Sometimes the simplest way to make your cat feel loved is by giving them the kind of space that lets them breathe a little easier. It can feel counterintuitive, especially when you want closeness, but cats often build trust in the quiet moments when no one is asking anything of them. When your cat slips away to a hidden corner or a high perch, they're not rejecting you. They're resetting their world in the only way that feels natural to them. And when you allow that retreat without following or calling out, you're showing them that their need for solitude isn't a problem you're trying to fix. Over time, they start returning from those private places with a softer energy, choosing to be near you not out of obligation, but because the space you offered made your presence feel safer. It's in that gentle return, that slow reemergence, that a deeper kind of connection quietly begins to take root. The human-cat language barrier. And once that connection begins to take root, have you ever wondered why it still feels like you and your cat sometimes speak past each other? There's a quiet mismatch in the way humans show affection and the way cats are wired to interpret it. And it creates these small, unintended moments of confusion. You might raise your voice gently, thinking it sounds loving, while your cat reads the volume before the warmth and backs away without understanding why. And your big, expressive gestures, the ones that feel natural to you, can look unpredictable to an animal who grew up reading subtle eye shifts and tiny changes in posture. When you start seeing affection as something filtered through two completely different communication systems, it becomes easier to understand why your intent doesn't always land the way you expect. And in that understanding, you begin to find the patience and softness that help your cat feel less overwhelmed and more at ease in the shared space between you. How cats interpret visual and vocal signals. You might see your cat pause in a doorway, eyes half softened, ears gently tilted, as if they're trying to read a language you didn't realize you were speaking. In that moment, they're not listening to your words as much as they're studying the shape of your body, the pace of your breath, the tone beneath your tone. Cats understand sound, but not the way humans do. They treat it like background shading, something that only makes sense when paired with what your body is doing. That's why a calm voice, paired with tense shoulders, can make them hesitate, or why a whisper, delivered with relaxed eyes, can bring them closer. They're constantly stitching together your signals into something that feels predictable and safe, even if they don't get every piece right. And when you start letting your eyes, posture, and voice tell the same quiet story, your cat begins to trust not just what you say, but the person you become in their presence. How cats naturally communicate. It's easy to forget that most of what cats say to each other is almost invisible to us. They move through their world using signals so subtle, an ear turning, whiskers shifting, a tail lowering, that you could miss an entire conversation by blinking at the wrong time. Adult cats rarely rely on vocal sounds with each other, saving them for moments of tension or urgency, which means the meows you hear are something they've learned mostly for you. What they trust instead is the quiet language of the body, the way pupils widen or narrow, the way their fur settles when they feel safe. And woven through all of it is scent, the gentle marking of furniture, doorways, and, yes, the people they choose to claim as part of their circle. When you begin to notice this softer vocabulary, you start to see your cat not as mysterious or distant, but as someone who has been speaking clearly all along. You just hadn't learned how to listen yet. Seeing how your cat reads your movements, your silences, and even your stillness can make the relationship feel a little more precious. And if you've ever worried that you weren't doing things right, you can let that go, because your presence has already been speaking for you. What matters most is simply understanding that love for a cat is built from a series of soft, honest moments layered over time. When you let yourself move through those moments without rushing them, everything between you starts to feel more natural and less like something you're trying to figure out. And that gentle awareness opens the door to another question many people quietly carry. Why a cat chooses to sit close enough to touch but not quite close enough to hold says something subtle about how they see you. If you're curious about that quiet choice, there's a beautiful explanation waiting for you.